There's a microphone. Greetings, Rothlings, and welcome to the broadcast of Starlink-6, the 7th batch of 60 Starlink internet satellites from SpaceX. We are looking at about 29 minutes to launch currently. SpaceX starts their live broadcast about 15 minutes prior to launch, and so we'll fill the time between now and then with questions, answers, and banter. Jacob Timmerman has a question. What is it? Oh, can he stream this on his channel? Yes. The live broadcast is courtesy of SpaceX, and anyone can rebroadcast it. Let's see. So, when was the last Starlink launch? It was mid-March, I think. I think it was about a month ago. Their pace of launches is a little less than what they had projected for this year, but obviously that's being affected by the virus and the. I don't know if my lighting is uneven or what. I am trying to get my hat symmetrical. Oh my gosh! All right. So let's see. Social distancing. Give me some questions. Oh, Peyton House asks, should I watch Everyday Astronaut or Raw Space? Well, your choice of space information is entirely up to you. I'm rather fond of myself, but Tim does a great job, and obviously he has an enormous following. You know, a little more energetic maybe than I am, but hey, you know, we've got a robust little community here, and we enjoy spending time together. So if you like that too, feel free to stick around. Boa tarde to you, Marcio. Louis Bork, 36? I'm not sure what that's referring to. Astronomy Films, welcome. Thank you, Rogue Spirit. Good to see you too. Pablo Saltivieri. New PC is working well. It's cooking up a storm over there. It's with the door closed, it's turning my computer room into a sauna, which is okay. But when I'm gaming, it gets a little warm. I need to take a look at the cooling, maybe get some sort of cooling for the chipset on the motherboard. I think that the liquid cooler for the CPU does all right. I think the chipset's getting a little warm. Let's see. EVGenius asks in Russian, and I can't pronounce in Russian, but the translation is, Roscosmos, are you there? So I don't have live, actually that'd be cool to implement a live voice translation for, like we have in the chat for the text translation. But EVGenius, this is a SpaceX launch. This doesn't have anything to do with Roscosmos. Roscosmos will be launching the Progress supply module in 2 days from Baikonur Cosmodrome. So if you want to tune into that stream, that will be that'll be a, don't leave this one, that'll be a Roscosmos launch. Vilgluk. What's up, bro? Hugs from Chile. Good to have you here, Transcode. Also, Trans rules. Hablas español, sí, un poco. Antonio GC. Bienvenidos. Latest on the May 27th. Okay, so Dan Smashy asks what the latest is on the May 27th launch of Crew Dragon. Noctua, good coolers, Pablo. Dan Smashy, May 27th launch of Crew Dragon. The latest I am aware of is that Crew Dragon will be launching on May 27th with 2 crew. The 2 crew that have been waiting for that DM2 mission. And that's the latest I have. So we're looking at May 27th for Crew Dragon. Hopefully that doesn't get pushed. Pilumix asks, is it the right place for a correct touchdown? I'm not sure exactly what the question is. If you're asking if the booster will be, if they'll be attempting a booster landing, yes, they will. They will be attempting to land. So this is the, I think, 4th. I think this is the 4th launch of this booster. Let me see here. This booster, okay, I don't have the details in the description, but this booster previously launched another Starlink mission. It also launched this booster today launched the Crew Dragon DM1 mission. So this is a historic booster. It also launched a commercial satellite. Gradia. Chipset running hot because I'm running RAID. That is quite possible. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I mean, the computer's doing fine. I need to do some more benchmarking. I need to finish getting my environment set up. I've still got a bunch of hard drives over in the my old computer that I need to move at least a couple of them over, probably most of them, like 3 of them, over to the new computer. But let me see what all this noise is about. Messages from teachers. That's important, from my kids. Okay, Vincent Oldfield said says he heard the SpaceX crew will be on the ISS for 12 days. That's possible. I don't have the latest information on the length of the stay of the SpaceX crew, the commercial crew, but it's not a standard expeditionary rotation, so they're not going to be there for very long. Just a short visit. So 12 days sounds feasible to me. Usually short visits are like a week to 15 days, something like that. A week to 2 weeks. 4th, yeah. Let's see. You know, I still haven't seen. Maria Kutajan mentions the Starlink train. I still haven't seen a Starlink satellite train. Well, I kind of saw one, but it was very dim, and it wasn't very good seeing that night, and I didn't get a great view of it. By the way, thank you very much, Pablo Saltivari, I keep wanting to say Saltivieri. But thank you very much for that donation. More fans, brah. You want to see the shots stitched. Ubuntu is free. Yeah, Rockin' Robbins, yes, I know Linux is free. Unfortunately, a lot of what I do isn't supported by other operating systems. I mean, so if all I were doing was streaming, yes, I could stream with Linux. If all I were doing were video editing, I could do that with a Mac. But I mean, I do streaming, I do editing, I do gaming, I do development work in Visual Studio and so on. A lot of things that the combination of which really requires Windows. Although I have considered setting up a virtual machine on my backup streaming system that that runs Linux for the purpose of streaming Starman. So the Windows operating system would do whatever it does, because it's actually, Starman is being streamed on a secondary computer that's located upstairs that belongs to a friend of mine. And the reason why I have it running up there is because I don't use that computer, but occasionally he does. So by setting up a virtual machine and having Starman run on the virtual machine rather than on the base operating system, when he remote desktops in, it's not going to affect the sound or interrupt the stream in any way, because that'll be running on a separate virtual hardware set. Transcode, yes, I am a software developer and IT professional. So, total geek. Rockin' Robbins, whoever thought that SpaceX would beat Boeing to the ISS by as much as will happen? He figured that NASA would ensure that the two would succeed within 30 days of each other. That would be quite a feat to orchestrate that. I mean, they could, like a dog on a leash, they could hold SpaceX back until Starlink, Starliner, gosh, was ready, but that could be a significant delay because Boeing is, Boeing. Amir Witwit says he's in the UK and he wants to see something in the sky. What time should he go outside? That entirely depends on the trajectory of this launch. I don't know which direction this will be orbiting in, but what you can do is there are a number of websites, including heavensabove.com, which is one of my favorites. It's heavens-above.com. That I'm talking to the microphone. That will tell you when exactly, like you punch in your location, your coordinates, or your your address or whatever, and it will tell you exactly when the train will be visible, and other objects, the ISS and other satellites, will be visible from your location, and at what times. Pablo, I have not done much video editing yet on the new PC. I really need to, because I need to assess the Well, so I've done some, and I've run into some strange issues. I took the so for basic cutting and splicing, I normally use Video Redo, which is software that it's a smart cutter, which does lossless keyframe to keyframe cuts of videos, and then it only encodes, like if you cut in between keyframes, it only encodes the few frames in between the cut and the keyframe. Anyway, it's a direct stream cutter aside from those first few frames, and I normally use that, but when I tried to use that software on my new computer, it didn't work at all. I mean, like it ran, but it was super slow, taking many times longer than it should have. And yeah, and then the resulting edit was I mean, the resulting exported file was corrupted. So I downloaded the latest version of it, and it works great. So, but as far as Premiere, I kind of have yet to cross that bridge. I've been tied up with some other stuff. So, looks like SpaceX has fired up their pre-broadcast Starfield animation. If I can, there we go. Interesting. You know, this whole time I didn't have the music running. I'm sorry for that. All right, let's take that off, and let's take that off. There we go. Wow. Okay. Get a little mixed up because every time I select one scene in my streaming software, like it switches back and forth and back and forth. It gets very difficult to. I wish I could turn off that feature. Like when I select a scene, I want it to stick on that scene. I guess the intention is so that you can flip-flop back and forth between scenes, but I don't want to flip-flop. I want to move forward only. All right. So, actually, I will go ahead and keep talking until they start their intro. Oh, which they're doing now. All right. I'll come back afterwards and answer some more questions for you. So here we go.
Screen will be flying today for the 4th time. It previously supported Crew Dragon's first demonstration mission to the International Space Station back in March of 2019. the launch of the RadarSat constellation mission in June 2019, and the January 2020 launch of the Starlink mission. Just like our first stages, we are also starting to reuse our fairings. Today we are flying a reused fairing which previously flew on the Amos 17 mission last year. I mentioned that this booster flew on Crew Dragon's first demonstration mission to the space station, and if you follow SpaceX, you know the date for our second demo mission is May 27th. It'll be a historic mission launching American astronauts from U.S. soil to the International Space Station for the first time since 2011, and we'll touch on that more later on in the broadcast. If for any reason there is a hold on the countdown today, we do have a backup launch window opportunity tomorrow at 3:16 p.m. Eastern. So with that, all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this evening. Now, you may recall during our last Starlink mission, there was an early engine shutdown on Falcon 9's first stage during Ascent. The Falcon 9 booster safely completed its mission as it was designed to in the event of an engine shutdown and delivered the satellites to their intended orbit. Since then, our engineers determined that the issue stemmed from a small amount of isopropyl alcohol, which is a cleaning fluid, that became trapped inside of a sensor dead leg, or an area where it couldn't flow through, and then it ignited. We did not perform that cleaning process on the rocket supporting today's mission, and all 9 Merlin engines, which were test fired on the pad just last week, are looking healthy ahead of flight. Prior to today's launch, the vehicle was housed in our hangar at Launch Complex 39A until about 24 hours ago, when the rocket, along with the Starlink payload, was rolled out to the pad and raised vertical. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle that you can see there, that is the first stage. You can actually see the soot markings left over from its last flight. The first stage is what accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space with the help of 9 Merlin engines at the base of the rocket. Today we'll be attempting to recover the first stage for the 4th time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which you can see there. And it's currently stationed about 350 nautical miles northeast off the Cape. Above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will carry the Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit above the Earth's surface. From there, they'll use their propulsion systems to move up to their operational altitude of 550 kilometers. Falcon 9 began loading propellants at T-minus 35 minutes. And as a reminder, we use a rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, as our fuel, and super-chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer to power the Falcon 9. Currently, RP1 and LOX are nearly fully loaded on both stages, and LOX will continue to be topped off right up until the last minute of the countdown. The stack of 60 Starlink satellites is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you can see there, that pointed cone at the very top of the rocket. This protects the satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during ascent. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we will jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. We won't be attempting to catch the fairing halves in our nets today, as our boat and fairing software are undergoing upgrades, but weather permitting, we will try to recover them from the water using our recovery ships Miss Tree and Miss Chief. And there's a live view from one of those ships. So as you can see, the water is looking a little rough, so stay tuned. Now, if you've been tracking the lead up to today's launch, you know that the weather has been a watch item for the last several days, with tornado warnings moving through the area. Our rocket and payload, however, were in the hangar as the storm passed, so we didn't see any adverse impacts as a result of that weather. And today, it's looking like a beautiful day for a launch. So with that, the vehicles, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now. As I mentioned at the top of the webcast, SpaceX and NASA are now targeting May 27 for Falcon 9's launch of Crew Dragon's second demonstration mission, or Demo 2 as we like to call it. This will be the first time that a commercially built spacecraft will launch people to the space station, and the first time in nearly 10 years that the U.S. has launched astronauts into space from U.S. soil. Demo 2 is an end-to-end flight test from launch to docking to splashdown, and it is the final major milestone for SpaceX's human spaceflight system to be certified for NASA for operational crew missions to and from the International Space Station. Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley will be the first two NASA astronauts to fly aboard Crew Dragon after completing countless hours of training, both at SpaceX and at NASA's training facilities. Both the spacecraft and the launch vehicle are at the Cape and undergoing preparations, and as you may have seen on social, Falcon 9 is getting a special paint job for the Demo 2 mission. That's right, NASA has brought back the famous worm logo. As you can see the logo painted on the Demo 2 Falcon 9 booster in this picture. The worm was brought back to mark the return of human spaceflight on American rockets from American soil with the Demo 2 mission. Once Demo 2 is complete, and the SpaceX and NASA teams have reviewed all the data for certification, NASA astronauts Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, Shannon Walker, and Jackson astronaut Soichi Naguchi have been assigned to fly on Dragon's first 6-month operational mission, which we are calling Crew 1 and are targeting for later this year. So we are currently just over 4 minutes away from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is moving into the final stages of the countdown. The first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. It's a clear, beautiful, gorgeous day out there. The first stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, liquid oxygen is going to continue to top off. Stage at T-minus 2 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, liquid oxygen is going to continue to top off up until just before liftoff. At T-minus 60 seconds, be sure to listen for the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. That means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. The Starlink payload continues to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is looking really good, and the range is green for launch. So with all that, let's just sit back and listen in to the last few minutes of the countdown.
Stage 2 lock sword is closed out. Falcon 9 is in startup.
LD is go for launch. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
As you can see, Falcon 9 has had a successful liftoff from pad 39A. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down and we'll throttle back up just in a second for preparation for Max Q. Max Q stands for maximum aerodynamic pressure, which are the highest stresses that the vehicle will see during ascent.
Maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Now coming up in about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back. First is main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 M1D engines will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation. This is where the second stage will separate from the first stage, with stage 1 making its way back down to Earth for landing, and stage 2 kicking off that third event that I mentioned, which is SES1, or second engine start 1. This is where the MVAC engine will light up and propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. Expecting MECO to occur in about 30 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Successful MECO. Successful stage sep. And it appears we have reignited or ignited that second stage engine for SES1. Now we're just a few seconds from fairing deploy. Again, this fairing has flown before on a previous mission. Grid fins are opening up.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we have fairing separation. We have successfully reused this fairing. Now those halves are making their way back down to the sea, where hopefully we can scoop them up. So on the left side of your screen, you have stage 1, which is making its way down to the drone ship. And on the right, you have stage 2, that MVAC engine burning with 250,000 pounds of thrust. The grid fins appear to be fully deployed at this point. Now, while stage 2 continues on with the primary mission, stage 1's got its own plans. It's going to execute 2 burns prior to landing. The first is the entry burn. That's where we will reignite 3 of the M1D engines, which will help slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. Shortly thereafter, we'll have a second burn, which we call the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle's velocity down rapidly in order to land safely on the drone ship. At the same time, during that burn, you'll see the landing legs that are currently folded up along the side of the rocket are going to deploy. MVAC is looking good right now. It looks a little overexposed on that image there, but we can still see the plume coming out, and we're still hearing good data. So while we're 2 minutes away
Stage
from
2 is
entry
on a nominal
burn,
trajectory.
just a note on these Starlink satellites. These 60 will be joining the constellation that's already on orbit. As we mentioned, we've launched more than 360 satellites. And again, these are to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people down on that globe that you see on the right side of your screen. The MVAC engine on stage 2 is at full power and on a nominal trajectory. Now, as stage 1 is making its way down, again, there are no engines burning while it's doing this. It's basically coasting using the grid fins to steer, and you can see those white puffs occasionally. That's cold nitrogen gas that is being used for attitude control, part of our ACS system, or attitude control system. That entry burn should be coming up here in about 15 seconds. Meanwhile, stage 2 continues on as planned.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
This burn goes for about 20 seconds. Four engines burning at once right
Stage
now.
2 continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
All right, successful shutdown of that entry burn. Meanwhile, stage 2 is looking great. All right, full screen shine here. There we go. Now this burn on stage 2 is going to continue up until you hear the call out of SECO 1, or second engine cutoff 1. You're going to hear that pretty quickly after landing.
Stage 1, entry transonic.
All right, MVAC D is beginning to throttle down, getting ready for that second engine cutoff.
Stage 1, landing burn, startup.
Entering terminal guidance.
All right, that landing burn has started. Let's see if we can see the plume in the view from the drone ship.
Stage 1, landing leg, deploy.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
There it is. Let's see. We have cheers. We have a rocket. Awesome. This is the 4th landing for this booster. And as you can hear, everybody here is super stoked to see it there. It's great. It's a gorgeous day. Gorgeous rocket. All right. And we have second engine cutoff on stage 2. And we are in a good orbit as well.
Nominal orbital insertion.
All right. So now stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for a few minutes. And during this time, The stage will actually start to spin
LOS
around
key
its central
expected.
axis, which gives the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need in order to space themselves out over time after they deploy. We're going to take a quick break and come back here at T plus 14 minutes.
LOS Newfoundland.
There we go. I'm back and unmuted, so you can actually hear me. That's good stuff. So let's see what we got here. Successful launch, successful landing. Fourth landing of this particular booster. This is the same booster that launched the DM1 Crew Dragon mission last year. Emerald Killer 1230, thank you so much for that donation. Do I remember you? Of course. Do I remember all the details? My memory is horrible, but yes, I appreciate you your continued presence here. Let's see. Water was choppy. Yeah, so the seas did look a little rough. Hopefully that doesn't pose a problem with the rocket. I don't remember which device they use, if it's the Octograbber or if it's a different device they use to secure the rocket to the drone ship, but yeah, they shouldn't have any issues, but let's see. Pro Self-Offense lives in Arizona and can't see squat. Yeah, I don't think there are any launch facilities out there. The closest one would be, I guess depending on where in Arizona you are, the closest one could be Vandenberg, or New Mexico's quote-unquote spaceport that isn't really a spaceport yet. So yeah, we've got 871 people watching now. Topped off a little over 1,000. If you could drop a like, that would be great. That helps out the channel. And if you like this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe. I try to provide all live streams of all launches that have live coverage. So some of the Russian military and all of the Chinese launches don't provide live coverage, but most of the other launches in the world do. With that said, during this period of quarantine, there aren't very many launches going on, but there's other events. There's, ISS streams, and I don't know. They had a spacewalk that was coming up, but I don't know if they delayed it. They must have delayed it because it was on the schedule and then it kind of disappeared. But whenever there's a live stream, I can... Oh, here we go.
Got the Starlink satellites into a good orbit and is now coasting and getting ready for deployment of those Starlink satellites. So we're going to listen in for the call out. It should come in about 30 seconds or so. We won't be able to see that right at that moment. We'll cut to the shot of the satellites deploying a little bit later, but in about 20 seconds we should hear the call out.
Payload deploy confirmed.
Okay, we just heard the call out for payload deploy. Now, as the satellites begin to separate over time, they're going to open up their solar array, and over the next, oh, there they go. All right, that's those 60 Starlink satellites. Look at that cool glow around them. Wow. Now, shortly after, as I was saying, after just coming up in the next, few hours or so, we're going to see the solar arrays deploy. And over the next days and weeks, the satellites will begin to distance themselves away from one another and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit of 550 kilometers. Sorry, that image just is always so beautiful and catches me each time. Now, with that, it brings our webcast to a close. We'd like to thank the 45th SpaceWeek for providing range safety today and the FAA for licensing today's launch. You can follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. So until next time, be well, and we'll see you next launch.
There's the microphone. Golly gee, I've got to get my my live streaming scenes ducks in a row here. So awesome, perfect launch, perfect landing, and all 60 satellites are deployed. By the way, Pure Core, thank you for that donation, as well as Emerald Killer 1230. Starlink-7 is good, Dr. Daniel says. So this was Starlink-6, which was actually the 7th. All of the Starlink missions are going to be offset by 1 because the first one wasn't Starlink 1. It was like a demo mission. and so Starlink-6 is the 7th batch of satellites. But yep, here we go. Now, what I want to do, so the next event is in 2 days, unrelated to SpaceX, but in 2 days, there's going to be a Progress supply module launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome on a Soyuz rocket, and we'll be streaming that. And then on Sunday, Sunday afternoon for me, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. GMT, is going to be SpaceWeek Live, which is my weekly hangout slash summary of space happenings that I do as a live stream now. Now what I want to do is do a little research and see if I can come up with an answer to the question of when Starlink service will actually be available to purchase, and for whom, if there's an answer to that question. So hopefully I'll have that for you. And maybe somebody even knows, and we'll post it in the chat. But let's see here. Emerald Killer 1230, thank you very much. How much money do I want? Up to $10. I only want what you are interested in contributing. The money goes to not only enhancing the streaming setup, but well, that's the main thing. Like I just did a major upgrade to my PC that actually depleted my coffers. My my war chest, as it were, and so I'm going to have to make up the slack, take up the slack on that over the next few months of dwindling YouTube revenues. But ultimately, it's about, do you enjoy the content? Do you enjoy having this space to hang out and commune with your like-minded space buffs? And if so, then are you interested in voicing that support in a monetary fashion? And if so, then your donations are more than welcome. But it's certainly by no means requested or required. Let's see. Thank you, Emerald Killer. That's much appreciated. $9.99. That's right, and 99 millionths. They're Rockin' Robins. Kashif Ghaffar saw something 2 days ago in Belgium. What did you see? A Starlink train? Because the last launch was a month ago, so those would be quite well dispersed and presumably higher in their orbits and therefore a lot dimmer than they are shortly after they're launched. Let's see. So doing a little math. Calc 7 times 60, because math. Hal 9000, thank you for not interfering with this launch. Oh, 420. I wonder. You know what? Elon is such a juvenile. I wonder if it was his plan to launch the 420th Starlink satellite on 420. That would have been perfect. They were 2 days off, but they came close. Of course, a couple of the satellites deorbited. I don't know exactly how many, but Terry Long, thank you for that donation. That peachy looks like an exercise peach. It is going pretty good, actually. I've got a new facial thing going on here. I figured I'm not doing much shaving during this quarantine, so might as well trim it up, make it look coherent. Let's see. Muhammad Chagori says something in Arabic. If I can select it. Ah. Hi and thank you. You're welcome. All right. Oh my gosh. Says, who's the girl that hosted the live YouTube launch? I do not recall her name. But if you search up SpaceX, well, I can type it in just as well and then answer it all for you, or answer it for you all right here. SpaceX launch commentator. Of course, John Insprucker and Kate Tice, who's the blonde, and I don't even know what color John Insprucker's hair is. Doesn't have much of it. I do not know, but it shouldn't be too difficult to find. I mean, I'm just streaming here. Lyriad's meteor shower. I haven't actually. We had some really clear weather for a couple of days, but then the clouds rolled in. Boop is asking about the Lyriad's meteor shower, and then the clouds rolled in, and the weather hasn't been great for the last couple of days. So, I mean, at night anyway, it's been overcast. Stream of the solar panels deployment. So Felipe Iglesias asks about the solar panels deployment. You know, I'm a little rusty on my Starlink. Let's say Starlink satellite. See if I can find a diagram of the Starlink satellite. Wikipedia. Single solar array. Yeah. Now, well, what I was trying to look up was, I do not off the top of my head know whether the Starlink satellites have a solar array that expands out, that unfolds. It probably does, but that would not deploy in any case until after the satellites were well separated, because they deploy all at once, all 60 of them, and then they slowly drift apart. And you're not going to want to deploy any solar panels while they are bumping into each other and in very close proximity. So that would be hours or even perhaps days down the road that they would you know, all be separated far enough to safely deploy the solar panels. The Exoplanets channel, hello, welcome once again. Always good to see you. Marcio Cumplido, glad to have you. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time in 2 days. Let's see. So, Sarah Johnson, R.A. Monster 163, and Charlotte Lockhart. We're getting, and Ahmed Akadi, we're getting reports of people seeing in the UK and in the Netherlands seeing Starlink fly overhead. That's very cool. I'm envious. Right after they're launched, is when they're brightest, because that's when they're of course in their lowest orbit, and then after that they raise them to a higher orbit by a couple hundred miles. But Emerald Killer 1230, thank you again. So monthly paid memberships, that in YouTube parlance, those are called memberships, and that feature is only offered to well, I don't think anyone has figured out the algorithm that determines which channel that feature is offered to. I'm eligible, except the feature has not been offered to my channel. You know, I have plenty of subscribers. I have tried really hard to remove all of the bogus and accidental copyright claims on videos, because sometimes there's false positives, and other times, like if you know, NASA or Arianespace has a piece of music in their broadcast that can trigger a copyright, not a strike, but a copyright claim that I then have to deal with. But for whatever reason, the memberships feature has not been offered to my channel. I wish that it would be offered, because amongst other things we get custom emojis, which I always thought would be fun. Now in our Discord, which I will link now in the live chat, oh, okay, Astronomy Films says he thinks you need over 100,000 subscribers. That's definitely not true for all channels, because there are channels with just a few thousand subscribers that have the memberships feature. There are multiple channels, other channels, even in the space that, like What About It and SpaceX Centric, which I'm pretty sure he's over 100K now, but he wasn't before. And they've had memberships for a while now. There are even, channels with just a few K or 20K that have memberships. In any case, if you do wish to become a monthly supporting contributor, there is an option for you, and that is, and I don't normally mention it because, again, this isn't about any kind of profit, but Patreon. Let's see, what is the command? Is it support? Support? Oh, contribute. One of those. Donate? I think it's donate. There it is. It's Patreon. It's patreon.com/rawspace, and there you can become a monthly a patron of the channel. So Emerald Killer 1230 asks how to become a moderator. So the normal process to become a moderator is to be a regular of the channel, to be a regular participant in the live chats, the Starman chat, and or live stream chats, and basically to show that you have a level of maturity and an eagerness to help people out, to explain things, basically to do moderator stuff aside from kicking people over a period of time. And then the choice for who becomes moderator really becomes obvious because it's somebody who's been doing moderator stuff anyway. But at this time, we're all set for moderators. We don't, it's not like there's job openings, but we're all set currently. But let's see. Positive, borderline, polite. Yeah, so being a moderator, it's a tough job because you need to be professional. You need to be respectful of people, but you also need to be able to be firm and put your foot down when necessary, but in a tactful way, not a cruel or a whatever way. So it's a tricky balancing act, but I think that the mod team here does a bang-up job, and I'm eternally grateful to them for what they do. Let's see. Oh, Bond Dwarfman has already been hidden. Thank you for that, moderator. But he asks why astronauts use Hollywood wire tricks at the ISS. I won't pay a lot of time, honor that with very much time, but I will say that they don't, and so there you go. It's an invalid question, which is typical of conspiracy theorists and flat earthers and people like that. They ask disingenuous or invalid questions like, why did NASA cut the feed when the UFO appeared or whatever? Well, number one, it wasn't a UFO. It was, city lights or whatever. And number two, they didn't cut the feed. The feed was on a standard camera cycling rotation, or they lost the video uplink due to the alignment of the satellites or whatever, some normal course of events. Anyway, so honest questions, great. Troll questions, not so great. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all so much for coming. Remember, we have a stream in 2 days. On the 24th at, let me check the calendar here, I'll even put a link to Sked. in the chat. On Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, or early Saturday at 1:30 a.m. GMT, is the broadcast for the Soyuz launch of Progress 75P to the ISS. Now, what they'll show is the launch in that stream, and then you know what? Let me check NASA real quick. I presume that they'll also have a rendezvous and docking. That NASA will also have a rendezvous and docking stream, usually a couple days later, Wednesday, Friday. Oh wow, look at that. Oh my gosh. All day Friday, NASA TV is going to have Hubble documentaries because it's Hubble's 30th anniversary. That is great. So check out NASA TV for that on Friday from 7 a.m. Eastern all the way through 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so 12:30 a.m. Wow. Okay, so this will be a quick flight to a quick cargo flight to the ISS. Sometimes it takes a couple days. This time it's going to be a quick trip. They launch at 9:30 p.m. Eastern and they arrive 3 hours later. Coverage of the docking of Progress 75 begins at 12:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, which is 4:30 a.m. GMT. And there you go. With that, I will go ahead and call it a day. And thank you all so much for coming. And I will see you next time.